I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, trying to piece together how my wife, Jenny, could turn into the kind of person I no longer recognize. We'd been together for almost 10 years, married for 6. It was comfortable, stable, or so I thought. She had a sharp tongue, a bitchy streak that sometimes made me want to tear my hair out, but underneath it all, I believed she loved me. Or at least I did. We had our routines, our inside jokes, and I thought we were solid until the cracks started showing. Looking back, maybe I should have seen the signs earlier. Little things, really. She started being more dismissive when I brought up plans. She'd cancel dinner dates last minute or brush me off when I asked about her day. Nothing drastic at first, just small shifts. Then she started staying late at work more often, claiming she had extra projects. Not unusual, right? But I noticed her phone always being hidden, her messages being deleted in a rush, and her attitude shifting the moment I got near. She snapped at me more, told me I was overly suspicious, paranoid even. I told myself I was, imagining things that I was just insecure until I was. One night I was supposed to be working late myself, but I stayed home to surprise her with dinner. I wanted to catch her off guard, maybe get her to talk honestly for once. I knew she'd be out, maybe at her friend Lisa's, or so she said. I got home early, around 8 p.m., expecting her to be out. What I saw instead changed everything. I saw her car parked in the driveway, but the house was too quiet. I stepped inside quietly, and that's when I heard the muffled sounds coming from the bedroom. My heart started pounding. I crept closer, trying not to make a sound, and then I peeked through the slightly open door. There she was, on top of some guy I'd never seen before. His hands were in her hair, and she was moaning softly. The worst part, she was naked from the waist up, her sexy bitchy smirk plastered all over her face as she was riding him. I froze, my stomach twisting. I couldn't believe this was happening. My wife, the woman I'd trusted, was cheating on me with some random pilot from that damn emergency medical helicopter service she always bragged about. I knew he was a pilot because I recognized his voice and his uniform. His name was Mark, probably some cowboy type who thought he was hot shit because he flew around saving lives. Meanwhile, I was literally out there saving a life, doing my job, and she was doing this. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this right under my nose? I wanted to yell, to storm in and throw everything in her face, but I couldn't move. I was just standing there, watching her ride that guy like she didn't give a damn about my feelings or the fact that I was out there risking my neck, saving lives in the back of an ambulance while she was busy fucking her pilot. It made my blood boil. I felt like I was gonna explode. I didn't even know how long I stood there frozen before she suddenly looked up and saw me in the doorway. Her face twisted into a bitchy sneer, like I was interrupting her fun. She jumped off that guy so fast, her eyes flashing with anger when she saw me. I stood there, stunned, trying to process what I'd just seen. That's when she started lying, of course. She said it was just a drunken mistake, that she was lonely and that Mark was just someone she'd been talking to. She told me she didn't mean for it to happen, that she was drunk or maybe just bored. She cried, she begged, she told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid. But I knew better. I saw the evidence. Her phone had messages between her and him, flirty, suggestive, explicit. She'd been sneaking around for weeks. I wanted to believe her lies, but I couldn't. I knew I was losing her, and I knew I had to figure out what to do next. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my world had been turned upside down. The image of her with Mark was burned into my mind. I kept asking myself how she could betray me like that, how she could lie so easily and pretend everything was fine. She was always the bitchy, sharp-tongued woman I loved, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish person who didn't care about our vows or the life we built together. I spent the next couple of days in a fog, trying to process what I knew and what I didn't want to accept. I kept going over that night, replaying every detail, wondering if I'd missed the signs, if I'd somehow been blind to her betrayal. Meanwhile, she kept acting like everything was normal, like I hadn't caught her cheating. She'd smile at me in a way that felt false, brush off my questions, and make excuses about being stressed at work or having a rough week. But I wasn't buying it anymore. This wasn't some passing phase. This was her lying, sneaking around behind my back, cheating with a guy I knew she barely even liked before she met him. One morning, I finally decided I couldn't keep going like this. I needed proof, something concrete, so I started digging. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media accounts. I wanted to find everything out, all the lies, all the sneaky messages. And what I found was worse than I expected. There were texts between her and Mark, explicit and flirty, but also conversations that hinted at her planning more. They'd been meeting up, sneaking away from their lives like a couple of teenagers. Sometimes she'd lie about working late, but her messages told a different story. She was hiding something, and I knew I had to confront her again. One afternoon, I finally sat her down. I told her I knew about the affair, showed her the evidence I'd uncovered. Her reaction was immediate. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and threw out some excuse about how I was paranoid and insecure. She said she was just talking to Mark, that there was nothing serious, that I was blowing it out of proportion. She insisted she loved me, that it was just a mistake born out of loneliness, and that she'd end it if I wanted her to. But I could see the bitchy gleam in her eyes, and I didn't buy her lies for a second. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the betrayal, her lies, the fact that she'd been screwing around while I was out there, risking my life, saving others. And the worst part, I realized I was falling into this deep well of anger and hurt that I didn't know how to climb out of. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, stabbed in the back all at once. I looked at her, sitting there, acting innocent, and I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to decide what I was going to do about this. I knew I couldn't just forgive and forget. I needed a plan, a way to get my revenge, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. Because she betrayed me, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it without consequences. The days that followed were a blur. I was stuck in between a rock and a hard place, angry, hurt, and desperate for some kind of justice. I couldn't just let her keep lying and acting like everything was normal. That night, I stayed up late, thinking about how I could turn this around, how I could make her feel the same pain she'd inflicted on me. I realized I needed to be smart about this. I wasn't just going to confront her again and yell. I needed a plan, something sneaky, calculated, that would hit her where it hurts. I started by digging deeper. I got access to her phone when she wasn't paying attention, checked her social media, and even installed a hidden app on her devices. I wanted to know everything, every place she went, every message she sent. I also contacted some of Mark's friends, trying to find out what I could. Turns out, Mark wasn't just some random guy. He was known around the squad as a player, and I learned from some guys that he'd been messing around with other women too. That only fueled my anger, the fact that she was so careless, so reckless with her own marriage. Meanwhile, she continued to deny everything, calling me paranoid and accusing me of trying to sabotage her. She threw her usual tantrums, called me insecure, said I was overreacting, and told me I was making wild accusations. But I had enough now. I wasn't just going to argue with her anymore. I wanted to make her regret this, to show her that I was serious about protecting what was left of our relationship, if that was even possible anymore. So I devised a plan. I knew she was planning to meet Mark again later that week. She'd texted him about a secret date. I decided to bait her. I sent a message pretending to be Mark, saying I knew about her, that I was done with her games, and that I was planning to tell her husband. I wanted her to panic, to realize I had the upper hand. Sure enough, she freaked out. She messaged back, calling me crazy, jealous, and paranoid. But I kept pushing, sending more fake texts, making her believe I was about to expose her. It was risky, but I wanted her to feel the fear, to see how much I was willing to fight for this. The next day, she was visibly rattled. She kept asking me if I knew what she was doing, trying to deny everything, but I just played along. I told her I was going to make her tell me the truth, that I deserved that much. I could see her trying to hold it together, but her bitchy facade was cracking. She was furious and scared at the same time. That's when I decided to set the trap. I told her I was going to her phone to see if she was hiding anything else. She snapped, saying I was overstepping, but I didn't care. I knew what I was doing and I was careful. This was about her, about making her realize she couldn't keep lying to me. So I went through her messages again and I found the real proof I needed. The messages between her and Mark weren't just flirtatious. They were explicit, planning meetings, and even talk about how she wanted to keep it a secret from me. Then I found a text exchange where she clearly told Mark she couldn't see him that night because I was too suspicious, but she'd find a way. That was the moment I knew I had her cornered. If I played this right, I could finally make her regret everything, make her see that she couldn't keep cheating on me, lying and sneaking around without consequences. The plan was coming together, and I was ready to execute it. The day I finally decided to act, I felt a strange mixture of adrenaline and dread. I had everything I needed: screenshots, the evidence I'd been gathering, and a plan that would blow her whole world apart. I knew confronting her head-on wouldn't work. She was too good at spinning lies, too manipulative. I needed to catch her off guard, make her believe she was still in control, and then hit her where it hurt. That evening I told her I was going out with some friends. She was bitchy as usual, dismissive, throwing her usual snide remarks about how I didn't trust her. I just smiled thinly, acting like I was just some jealous idiot. Inside, I was seething. I went to the garage and retrieved a small USB drive I'd hidden in my toolbox. On it was all the evidence, screenshots of her messages, the recordings I'd made from her phone, even some videos I'd secretly taken of her texting Mark. I knew she'd try to deny, twist, or destroy any proof I showed her, but I was prepared. I waited until she was out of the house, then I set everything up. I had an accomplice, my best friend Jake, who knew the whole situation and agreed to help me. We arranged for him to call me at a specific time. Then I would send her a message with a link to a file I'd uploaded secretly online, an anonymous drop with all her messages and recordings. I knew she'd lose her mind once she saw the truth spelled out so blatantly, and I wanted her to get a good dose of reality when she realized I'd caught her. When the time was right, I texted her that I had something to show her. Her reaction was priceless. She was furious, calling me crazy, stalking, and going overboard. I played it cool, told her I just wanted honesty, that I wasn't afraid to show what I'd found. Then I sent her the link. I could hear her voice trembling through the phone when she clicked it and started scrolling through the messages. Her face went blank. Her eyes widened in shock, then rage. She tried to deny everything, to call it a setup, but I just stood there, calm and collected. I knew I had her. I watched her go through the evidence, her bitchy attitude totally crumbling. She started crying, then flailing, then she went silent. She looked at me with this wide, betrayed look, like she couldn't believe I had finally caught her. I saw her trying to come up with some excuse, some bullshit about how it meant nothing, how Mark was just a distraction, and how she was just unhappy. But I wasn't buying it anymore. This wasn't some innocent mistake. She had been lying to my face for months, sneaking around and screwing around with a guy who flew around in a helicopter, saving lives while I was out there doing the same, and she was just cheating on me like it was nothing. When she finally broke down and begged me to forgive her, I just looked at her, my hurt turning into cold fury. I told her it was over, that I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulations, her bitchy attitude, and her cheating bullshit. I told her I was done being a fool, that she was a liar, a cheater, and that she didn't deserve my trust anymore. I was dead serious. I made it clear I wasn't going to be her doormat, not anymore. I wanted her gone, and I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me. I knew this was the turning point. I'd finally shown her that I wasn't just some naive husband. I was smart. I was angry, and I was done playing the fool. The betrayal was real, and now she was going to face the consequences. After I dropped the bomb on her, everything changed in an instant. Jenny's bitchy facade was gone, replaced by raw, desperate tears and angry accusations. She kept insisting she loved me, that Mark meant nothing, that she was just a stupid mistake. But I'd seen what I needed to see, and I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. The trust was shattered beyond repair. I told her she could pack her bags and leave that night. I didn't want to hear another lie or see another fake smile. I wanted her out of my life because I finally understood what she was capable of. She'd been cheating on me all along, and she didn't even care how much she hurt me. That night, She packed her things in a whirlwind of bitchy tears and angry words. She kept telling me I was overreacting, that I was insecure, and that she'd never do anything to really hurt me. But I knew better now. Her words were empty, hollow. Her tears were just a show. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I'd learned my lesson. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see what was right in front of me. She had been lying, sneaking, and screwing around with a man who flew in the clouds while I was down here, risking my life on the ground. As she stormed out that night, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I was relieved because I finally knew the truth and didn't have to pretend anymore. But I also felt a deep, gnawing sadness, because this was someone I'd loved, someone I'd trusted with my life. Now that trust was gone, and I had no idea if I could ever get it back. I knew I had to start rebuilding, not just my life, but my confidence and my sense of what was real. The days that followed were hard. I had to face the reality that the woman I'd married had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I kept asking myself why she did it, what I did wrong, if I'd somehow failed her, or if she was just inherently selfish. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about me. It was about her choices, her selfishness, her bitchy attitude that she used to cover up her true nature. I started seeing her differently, less as a wife and more as a manipulative, unfaithful person who only cared about herself. I reached out to some friends for support, trying to stay strong. I also started reflecting on what I wanted from life now. I knew I couldn't rebuild what I'd lost overnight, but I could take this as a lesson about trust, about honesty, about the importance of paying attention. I realized I'd been blind to her true personality for too long, trying to ignore the signs because I loved her. But love isn't enough when someone is willing to cheat, to lie, and to act like a selfish bitch. I decided I'd focus on myself from now on, get back on my feet, find my own happiness and leave her behind. Because I learned that some betrayals cut so deep they change everything. And sometimes, the only way to move forward is to cut ties completely. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole experience changed me, maybe for the better, maybe just for the hardened. I thought I knew Jenny, thought she was my partner in life, but she turned out to be someone else entirely. The betrayal hurt like hell, and I spent many nights questioning everything I believed about trust and love. But ultimately, I learned something valuable. You can't ignore the signs, no matter how much you want to believe in fairy tales. People reveal themselves in moments of weakness, and sometimes those moments are too dark to recover from. The thing that sticks with me most is the feeling of betrayal, how someone you've given your heart to can turn around and stab you in the back so coldly. It's like your entire world crumbles in an instant and you're left trying to pick up the pieces. For a while I was angry, hell, I was furious. But eventually that anger turned into a kind of resolve. I knew I'd survive this, that I'd come out stronger, even if it didn't feel like it at first. I've learned to be more cautious, more observant. I don't trust blindly anymore. I've also learned that revenge isn't always about hurting someone back. Sometimes, it's about reclaiming your own peace and dignity. I made sure Jenny left knowing she'd lost more than just a marriage. She lost someone who saw her for who she really was and refused to be fooled again. I wanted her to know that her actions had consequences, that lying and cheating can't be hidden forever. Now I focus on my job, my friends, and rebuilding my self-esteem. I don't hold on to bitterness. At least I try not to. I've realized that some lessons are hard, but they're necessary. If there's one thing I want others to take from my story, it's this. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to fix. So pay attention to the signs. Don't ignore your gut. And if someone shows you they're capable of betrayal, don't make excuses for them. Because in the end, the only person responsible for your happiness is yourself. I've learned that the hard way, but I also know I'll come out of this stronger. That's what matters.